The last question for today is one really about grief and walking through death, walking through loss. And this student asked, what would I do if I lost a close family member or my parents?
Yeah.
What would I do if I lost them?
Well, to the person who's asking this, I'm so sorry if you have recently lost someone, or, maybe the way the question is worded, maybe your parent or a close loved one is facing a terminal illness and you're expecting or even anticipating their death. And what I would tell you is, I'm heartbroken for you. Again, death is not a part of God's original design for us. It's an intruder. It's not a part of our life as God intended it, but because of sin and brokenness, it's one of the saddest and hardest realities we have to face. In loss of a family member, it can feel catastrophic. It can feel like your world as you know it is ending. And so if that's happening or you're anticipating happening it now, one of the things that I would say you could begin doing is just, can you begin to name some of the feelings that you're experiencing? Can you begin to name some of the emotions? What are you feeling? Maybe you're feeling actually kind of angry because your parent means a lot to you and you are young and you don't want to lose a parent. And yet they're faced with this terminal illness and you are facing the prospect of losing them early. Maybe you feel just overwhelmed because you don't even know what you're going to do. What happens next? People are already asking you questions. Maybe you just want to cry all the time. And what I would say is there is no emotion that you're feeling right now that you can't bring to the Lord, that you can't name and bring to the Lord. Sometimes I think as kids and teens, we feel like, man, God's too busy with all the big stuff in the world. He doesn't really care about me and what I'm going through. And friend, nothing could be further from the truth. In Psalm 116, the psalmist says that the Lord inclines his ears to those who call on him. And the language there is of like a person kind of getting down on his knees and kind of like putting his ear down to another person so that he can hear him. And friend, our God that we serve, he wants to hear about what you're going through. So all of those feelings, all of that mix of emotions that you're anticipating as it relates to grief, bring them to the Lord, because it's when we confess and open up about some of those feelings that we can receive the comfort of the Lord. Later on in the big Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says in Matthew 5:4, he says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." And so the connection is, in order to receive comfort, you need to mourn. You have to be honest. So don't feel like you have to stuff these feelings. Don't feel like you have to shy away from these feelings. The Lord cares. He wants to comfort you. But in order to receive that comfort, you got to be honest. You have to talk about those things with the Lord. And he's never going to turn you away. And he's never going to get too tired of listening to you.
Yeah. That's great. I hear a lot, both in some questions that I've received, but also just in some of my friendships with young people. A lot of times when a grief happens, maybe a parent passes away or there's a divorce or something like that, the student feeling like, I have to be strong for blah, blah, blah. I've got to be strong for my siblings. I have to be strong for my mom. What would you say to that person who's like, Jonathan, I would love to just feel my emotions and bring them to God, but I have to shut those off in some way because I have to be strong for blank. What
Yes.
would you say to that young person?
To that young person, I'd want to give you a pat on the back and give you a big hug because that's really noble to want to be there for other people. But one of the things we say a lot in counseling is God designed us to be needy and needed. So there will be some times where you're needed, and make space for those. Rely on the Lord, but also don't be ashamed to say there might be a time for you to be needy and to ask for help. So just make sure that the balance between both of those things over time is as balanced as possible, meaning you don't want to be 100% needed in the sense of you're constantly pouring out because pretty soon you'll be on empty. But at the same time, part of that feeling of being needy over time doesn't feel good either. Part of being needy can lead to actually not having space and agency to say, you know what? I can actually move towards others and offer comfort that I've received during this time. So I think it's a both and, not an either or.
That's great. That's helpful for me, even thinking about being needed and needy at the same time and balancing those. I really like that a lot.